Articles and Thoughts on Vedanta by Parama Pujya Sri Sachidanandendra Saraswati Mahaswamiji, HoLenaraseepur, Adhyatma Prakasha Karyalaya. In this, we have already seen 25 articles. Today's is the 26th one. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. The one means of attaining Atman. Absolute reality called Atman or Brahman is paradoxically enough most difficult of attainment from one point of view, while from another there is nothing more easily accessible than it, for it is the very self of the seeker. The Upanishad thus states the relative value of the several means available for the attainment of Atman. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyo na medhayana bahuna shrutena yame vaisha vrunute tena labhyastasyaisha atma vivrunute tanum swam. Mundakopanishad Karika. This Atman is not attainable through the study of holy works, not through thinking on them and remembering their teaching, nor by listening to sacred teaching in various ways. By that Atman alone, whom this seeker longes to attain, by that Atman can he be attained. To him, this Atman reveals his true nature. It is present in both Mundakopanishad and Gaudapadacharya Karika. This same mantra, which occurs in two different Upanishads, declares the Kataka Upanishad, not Karika. It is also in Kataka Upanishad, also Mundakopanishad. So, the same mantra which occurs, Kataka or Katha Upanishad, both are same, which occurs in two different Upanishads, declares that more than study, memorizing and even listening to teaching about Atman, there is one important means to attain Atman, or for the attainment of Atman, is the intense longing for and pursuit of the knowledge of Atman exclusively. To such a persevering seeker alone, this Paramatman or universal self is sure to disclose his real nature. Of course, study of the Vedas and other means are also necessary, but they would be fruitful only when they are employed with the sole aim of reaching Atman. There are indeed many other proximate means which are calculated to hit the target even more surely than the above mentioned means. For instance, the Mundaka mentions some of them. Nayamatma balahinena labhyo na cha pramadat tapaso vapyalingat etairupayair yatate yastu vidvastasyesha atma vishate brahmadhama. This Atman is not attainable by one devoid of the vigor of staying in Atman, nor by distraction, nor even by the discipline of concentration without sannyasa. Whichever discriminating person, however, makes a sustained effort with these aids, this self of his enters into the abode of Brahman. We may refer the readers to other qualifications such as humility, desisting from vanity, non-injury, mentioned in the Gita, or non-violence. The one indispensable element, however, that should run through all these names is, as the Upanishad insists, Yame Vaisha Vrunute Tena Labhyaha, a sustained devotion to Atman, or as Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, Mai Chananya Yogena Bhaktiravyavicharini, unflinching devotion to God by means of the yoga of non-difference. Atman or divinity is the innermost self of the seeker and can therefore be reached in no other way than intently seeking it with the help of the introvert mind. The seeker should therefore first of all turn his mind inwards and train it to develop an unwavering love of Atman in contrast to the natural attachment to outward objects. This is what is called bhakti. Bhagavan Sri Krishna promises to bless his devotees with the intuition of Atman in these words: to those who ever stay their mind on me and ever serve me with love, I give that direction to their mind by which they approach me. Out of compassion for such devotees exclusively, I destroy the darkness born of ignorance, seating myself in their heart by means of the luminous lamp of wisdom. That is Krishna's Abhayavakya. Next, 27th thought: the removal of avidya by Brahmavidya. HoLenaraseepur Sri Sachidananda Saraswati Swamiji says, does the knowledge of Brahman remove the entire avidya nescence immediately at its very dawn? He questions. This has been a moot point for discussion among the Advaitins themselves ever since some sub-commentator on Shankara brought forward the theory that a little of avidya lesha continues to stay on till the fructifying karma is quite exhausted. This theory naturally gave birth to another undesirable doctrine that has been maintained in some quarters, that real moksha or final release in its primary sense is possible only after the knower has shuffled off this mortal coil. The latter doctrine is of course directly opposed to Badarayana's sutra, evam mukti phala niyamas tadavasthavadhrute. There is no such alternative with regard to release, for that has been emphasized to be uniform throughout. Shankara proclaims in his commentary on this aphorism, the Brahma Sutra, तद्धि असाध्यं नित्यसिद्धस्वभावमेव विद्यया अधिगम्यत इत्यसकृदवादिष्म इति असकृद अवादिष्म सूत्रभाष्य. For we have remarked more than once that the release, is not something to be attained, but eternally existing as it is by nature and only revealed by vidya. It is true that from the empirical standpoint, the false notion that one is an agent may continue to stay, kartru, as it were, even after true knowledge has dawned. Accordingly, Shankara writes elsewhere, Badhitamapitu mityajnanam dvichandrajnanavat samskaravashat kanchit kalam anuvartata eva. This false notion, even while it has been sublated, does continue for a while, owing to impressions of past notions like the notion of two moons. But by dint of knowledge acquired through the intuition of reality, the wise one knows that there was no duality whatever, even in the state of ignorance. It is therefore wrong to think that a fraction of avidya remains as a residuum even after correct knowledge has sublated it. For avidya is not an actual something clinging to Atman, waiting to be really erased by vidya. It is only a device for teaching the true nature of Atman, granting empirical binding of the human mind to be negated as soon as the truth has been realized. Next, 28th thought or article, Badarayana's treatise on Vedanta. Shankara has assigned two epithets to Badarayana's work consisting of aphorisms, popularly known by name Brahma Sutras. At the close of the famous introduction to his commentary on this unique work, Shankara says, ಯಥಾ ಚಾಯಮರ್ಥಃ ಸರ್ವೇಷಾಂ ವೇದಾಂತಾನಾಂ ತಥಾ ವಯಮಸ್ಯಾಂ ಶಾರೀರಕಮೀಮಾಂಸಾಯಾಂ ಪ್ರದರ್ಶಯಿಷ್ಯಾಮಃ. ಅಧ್ಯಾಸ ಭಾಷ್ಯ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ದ ಬಿಗಿನಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಸೂತ್ರ. We shall show in this Shariraka Mimamsa how this is the uniform purport of all the Vedantas. Introduction to Brahma Sutra Bhashya by Shankara. After explaining that the avidya referred to in the Upanishads is only another name for the mutual superimposition of the real self and the unreal not self, and the mistaken transference of the properties of either of these to the other, Shankara says that Badarayana's work called the Shariraka Mimamsa or Brahma Sutra proposes to show how the one uniform aim of the Vedantas or Upanishads is to teach that the wisdom of the unity of Atman is the only means of wiping off this avidya, the source of all evils. And in introducing the very first aphorism of the work, the Acharya says, Vedanta Mimamsa Shastrasya ವ್ಯಾಚಿಖ್ಯಾಸಿತಸ್ಯ ಇದಮಿದಂ ಸೂತ್ರಂ ಇದಮಾದಿಮಂ ಸೂತ್ರಂ. The Vedanta Mimamsa Shastra which is now proposed to be explained, this is the first sutra. It is obvious why Badarayana's work has been designated as Vedanta Mimamsa, for it is solely written for the purpose of interpreting Vedantic texts. It is a systematic exposition of the sacred subject matter, Mimamsa, of the systematic exposition is Mimamsa of the Vedantas for the Upanishads or the Upanishads, Vedantas or Upanishads. But why does Shankara call it the Shariraka Mimamsa? That this name is no invention of that teacher, is disclosed by a statement of his in this commentary elsewhere. Ata eva cha bhagavata upavarshena prathame tantre ಆತ್ಮಸ್ಥಿತ್ವ ಅಭಿಧಾನ ಪ್ರಸಕ್ತೌ ಶಾರೀರಕೆ ವಕ್ಷ್ಯಾಮಃ ಇತ್ಯುದ್ಧಾರಃ ಕೃತಃ. Hence it is that the revered Upavarsha only said, we shall explain this in the Shariraka, even while there was the need in the previous Mimamsa to prove the existence of Atman. This sentence occurs in the course of a reply to the question as to why the question of the existence of the Atman is taken up here again, seeing that in the very beginning of the former Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa, by S.S.SwAmeeji, Shankara answers that there is no sutra devoted to this subject in the Karma Mimamsa, and both the Bhashyakara and Upavarsha had to anticipate what is expressly taken up here for discussion. It is clear that the name Shariraka was already familiar to Vedic expositors, at least as early as Upavarsha. Shankara has therefore to be supposed to have retained this title of the work for good reasons. While Shankara has nowhere stated in so many words what the exact significance of this word Shariraka is, we can surmise from one or two statements of his what exactly he understood by this epithet. The first sentence worthy of consideration is in his commentary on the sutra, Anupapattestetu na shariraha. Badarayana says here, Badarayana means Vyasa, Badarikashrama Vasi, Badarayana. Badaryam ayanam yasya Badarayana uchyate. Badarikashram Vasi, one who has built his house or ashram in Badari, is called Badarayana. Ayana means halt, residence, ashraya. So, Badarayana says here that the attributes or upadhis of manomaya etc. cannot be rightly supposed to belong to the individual self, inasmuch as there are many properties enumerated there which are inapplicable to jiva. That Acharya derives the word Sharira in this sutra as follows and adduces the reason why it cannot be the same name of Brahman. Sharira iti sharire bhava ityarthah nanu ishwaropi sharire bhavati satyam sharire bhavati natu sharire eva bhavati. Jayan prithivya ಜ್ಯಾಯಾನಂತರಿಕ್ಷಾತ್ ಆಕಾಶವತ್ ಸರ್ವಗತಶ್ಚ ನಿತ್ಯಃ ಇತಿ ಚ ವ್ಯಾಪಿತ್ವ ಶ್ರವಣಾತ್. जीवस्तु शरीर एव भवति तस्य भोगाधिष्ठानात् शरीरात् अन्यत्र वृत्त्यभावात्. Here sharira means one who is in the body. Objection: does not Ishvara also have his being in the body? Reply: true, he does have being in the body, but he is not in the body alone. For we learn that he is all pervading from Shrutis, like more extensive than the earth, more extensive than the ether or antariksha. He is all pervading and eternal like ether. Jiva, on the other hand, exists exclusively within the body alone, for he cannot function anywhere else than in the body, which is the only basis for his experience. We are told here that the name Sharira in the sutra uniformly denotes the embodied individual self, Jivatma or Atma. We have therefore to conjecture that the title of Shariraka applied to the collection of Shastras has been retained by Shankara not merely because it has been traditionally handed down by a succession of teachers from very ancient times, but also because, as connected with Jiva, it has some thought-arresting significance for this school of Vedanta. And Shankara confirms this conclusion in this commentary on another sutra, in his commentary. There are other doctrines and some belonging to our own way of thinking also, who think that the Jiva form also is really real. This Shariraka has been undertaken by Badarayana to awaken all those who are opposed to the only right view of the unity of Atman. Tesham sarvesham atmaikatva samyak darshana pratipakshbhutanam pratibodhaya idam sharirakamārabdham, by showing how the one Supreme Ishvara or Lord or God or Paramatma, the unchangingly eternal conscious entity, is conceived to be many through avidya, just as a magician is imagined to be many owing to magical effects conjured up by him, while really there is no conscious entity other than that Lord. It is now crystal clear that Shankara aims at suggesting that Badarayana's work is called Shariraka Mimamsa because its chief aim is to dispel the popular notion that there are actually a number of individual selves besides Brahman, and to convince us that as the substrate of all these apparent jivas is Brahman, the one Atman taught by the Upanishads. So, this ends the 28th article. Next we have 29th one. Badarayana's view of the subject matter of the Upanishads. There are at least two methods of approach open to any interpretation of the body of the Upanishads. In the first place, this portion of the Vedas forms the closing of the Vedas. Veda Anta. Anta means end. Whence plausibly they have been called the Vedantas. From this viewpoint, one is justified in expecting that, like the previous portion, they also propose and teach some means to achieve the goal, like dharma, resulting from the performance of the religious rites. And seeing that almost all the Upanishads prescribe upasanas, meditations, yielding beneficial results both here and in the other world, it is quite natural to suppose that the upasanas that promise the attainment of Brahmaloka, whence there is no return to this mundane life, constitute the cardinal doctrine of the Vedantas. And in the second place, there is the fact staring us in the face that these Upanishads uniformly teach that the knower of Brahman attains the highest goal and verily becomes that Brahman itself. There are certain items of discipline also which the seeker is recommended to undergo for knowing Brahman. So, from this standpoint, it would appear that Brahman alone is the transcendental entity recommended to be known for attaining the goal. There is, however, a problem to be solved here concerning the relation of the texts enjoining meditation to these texts recommending the knowledge of the Brahman alone for the purpose of attaining release. In view of the fact that there are texts enjoining the meditation on Brahman also, upasana, so karma, upasana and jnana, 3. One could naturally suppose that the injunction of Brahman is the main theme of the Vedantas, in contrast to the texts that enjoin karma of the Karma Kanda, whose main goal is the propitiation of the devas or demigods and the attainment of Swarga. This view has been actually held by some Vedantians. Another question now crops up: how are we to treat the karmas in relation to the Vedantic doctrine? Are they to be dispensed with altogether in considering the means of release, or do they still continue to have their own place here? There have been Vedanta Bhashyakaras who have stoutly maintained that a conjunction of karma and meditation on Brahman is needful for the attainment of release, and the Badarayana's Vedanta Mimamsa is mainly for the purpose of ascertaining which karmas are to be combined with Upasana in order to bring about the final release. We now come to the verdict of Shankara's tradition in this matter. This school is of opinion that over and above the knowledge of Brahman subservient to meditation, there is another kind of knowledge culminating in intuition proposed in the very first sutra of Badarayana, Athato Brahma Jijnasa, then therefore the inquiry into the nature of Brahman. Atha, then Ato, therefore Brahma Jijnasa, the inquiry into the nature of Brahman. Shankara comments on the word Jijnasa here as follows: Jnatum Ichcha Jijnasa Avagati Paryantam Jnanam Avagati Paryantam Jnanam Sanvachyaya Ichchaya Karma Phala Vishayatvad Ichchaya Phala Vishayatvat Ichchaya Jnanena hi Pramanena Avagantum Ishtam Brahma Brahmavagatirhi Purusharthaha Nishesha Samsara Bija Vidyadya Anartha Nibarhanat. Jijnasa literally means desire to know Brahman. Here, that's Brahma Jijnasa means. The knowledge culminating in intuition is the object of the desire, denoted by the desiderative suffix san. For desire is always for some result. The intuition of Brahman alone is the highest goal, for it destroys all evils such as ignorance, which are the root cause of samsara, the cycle of births and deaths. Samsara means. This then is the view of Badarayana according to Shankara about the subject matter of the Upanishads. It is the intuition of Brahman and not merely Upasana or the knowledge subservient to it that is mainly proposed to be revealed in the Upanishads, for that is the one effective means of eradicating avidya or ignorance and making release manifest. We shall take up in the subsequent articles all the implications of this teaching of Shankara so as to enable the student of Vedanta to realize the unique teaching of Vedanta according to this tradition. Next we have 30th article, the nature of knowledge of Brahman. What is that? Let us see. Today's last topic, the nature of knowledge of Brahman. We have seen that Badarayana's view, according to Shankara, the subject matter of the Upanishads is chiefly Brahman and its knowledge, and not any injunction as supposed by some schools of Vedantins who interpreted the sutras before and after Shankara. We have now to see whether this interpretation of Shankara's is merely a revolutionary departure from the majority of the commentators on the sutras, or there are any redeeming features which specially commend this unique system to the critical reader who is serious about the goal of life promised in these Shrutis. In the first place, we have the very first sutra, which runs thus: Athato Brahma Jijnasa, in Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutras by Badarayana Vyasa. Then, therefore, the desire to know Brahman, Atha, Ato, then, therefore, Brahma Jijnasa, desire to know Brahman. This is obviously in contrast to Jaimini's Sutra, Athato Dharma Jijnasa, then, therefore, inquiry into the nature of Dharma. Jaimini Sutra, Purva Mimamsa. There are 6 darshanas, as all of you know. Kapila Muni, Sankhya Darshana. Gautama Muni's Nyaya Darshana. Kanada Muni's Vaisheshika Darshana. Patanjala Yoga Darshana. Jaimini Munis Purva Mimamsa Darshana, Badarayana Vyasas Uttara Mimamsa or Vedanta or Brahma Sutra Darshana. Now here this is obviously in contrast to Jaimini's Sutra Athato Dharma Jijnasa, inquiry into the nature of Dharma. Shankara remarks that Badarayana's work could not have been composed if, like Jaimini, he also only meant to emphasize the injunction of Upasana meditation as held by the other schools of Vedanta. स्वतंत्रमेव ब्रह्मशास्त्रप्रमाणकं वेदान्तवाक्यसमन्वयात् इति सिद्धम् एवञ्च सति अथातो ब्रह्मजिज्ञासा इति तद्विषयः पृथक् शास्त्रारम्भ उपपद्यते प्रतिपत्तिविधिपरत्वे हि अथातो धर्मजिज्ञासा इत्येवारब्धत्वात् न पृथक् शास्त्रमारभ्येत. It is established that Brahman, independent of any injunction, is revealed by the Vedanta Shastra because of the syntactical connection of Vedantic texts. For if the Shastra were meant to have its purport in the injunction of knowledge, meditation, a new Shastra could not have begun, since enquiry into dharma, religious duty, has been already composed. This is, of course, only a negative argument to show that knowledge of Brahman is not something to be enjoined. There is, however, a positive side of the argument in Shankara's explanation of the word therefore, ataha, in the first sutra. Yasmad veda eva agnihotraadinam shreyas sadhananam anityapalatam darshayati tadyatheha karmajito lokah kshiyata evamevamutra punyajito lokah kshiyate. Chandogyopanishad ityadihi. तथा ब्रह्म विज्ञानादपि परम पुरुषार्थं दर्शयति ब्रह्मविदाप्नोति परम. तैत्तिरीयोपनिषत् इत्यादि. ब्रह्मविदाप्नोति परम स एषाभ्युक्ता. Taittiriya Upanishad. In as much as the Veda itself shows how ephemeral the result of Agnihotra and other means to the good in the other world, in such texts as just as the enjoyment won through the secular work here is exhausted, so also the enjoyment won through the meritorious religious duty exhausts itself. Chandogya Upanishad. And Veda itself points to the highest goal of human life, accruing from the knowledge of Brahman. Veda itself points to the highest goal of human life, accruing from the knowledge of Brahman. Therefore, one should desire to know Brahman after one has equipped oneself with the required qualifications. Upasana, also being dharma, cannot grant the eternal fruit of moksha according to the Shruti. We shall go into the details of the nature of the knowledge of Brahman in the next article. Next article we have 31st article, knowledge of Brahman. And next is 32nd also knowledge of Brahman. 33 is truth and error, etc. we will be seeing. So I stop here with this 30th article. Hare Rama. Shri 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 Sachidanandena Saraswati Charanarvindarpitamastu. Sadguru Shri Subraya Sharma Ji Charanarvindarpitamastu. Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Brahmarpanamastu. Om Tat Sat.